Carolyn Dube here with another Playdate Spray Ink edition. Playdates for me are a time when conversations happen about why we do the things that we do, why we like the supplies that we like, and that's what I'd like to start here with these, are the conversation. So I'm going to start the conversation off with what I like about today's spray ink, and I encourage you to join in the conversation with what you like about a spray ink that's your favorite, how your favorite way is to use it. You can share it over on my blog at A Colorful Journey, or join us all over in the playground called the Colorful Playground over in a Google Plus community. But it is really all about the conversation. There's no right or wrong answer, but the why, the how, those are the things that are absolutely fascinating to me. And hearing how someone else uses it sparks something in me. So I'm hoping that by you hearing how I use these supplies or why they're my favorites, it might spark something for you. Well, on with today's play. Today I'm playing with one of my favorite spray inks, and this one's called Color Blooms by Prima. And one of the things that I really like about it is it's kind of sticky. And I'll explain what I mean about that as I go. So here I'm going to do just this plain old straight normal spraying with it. I'm shaking it up because there's mica in it. It's got a little ball in it that mixes it. Using that great trigger spray, I can just shoot a nice even coat everywhere. Now that stencil, which is one of my new ones from over at Stencil Girl Products, and it's called Wall of Words, has lots of ink all over it, and I don't want to waste any of that color and pigment. So what I'm going to do is just grab a scrap sheet of paper and put it down just to absorb a whole bunch of the ink off of it. What I found with Color Blooms ink is it tends to stick to the stencil better than other spray inks. So I can get more interesting cleanup prints, when you're just trying to use up that excess ink that's on there. But because it's so sticky, it works exceptionally well with something like a rubber stamp. And this stamp that I've got here is from Technique Junkies. Love the trees, love the fall look, and I'm going to start off with some brown on it. And again, you need to shake these up before you probably didn't need to shake this again because I just shook it to do the words. But, I want to make sure that you got to shake these things up because that's what gets the mica all mixed up. And then what I'm going to do is just pulling my hand way up so I get a really light mist. I've done the brown for the tree, and now I'm kind of hitting it with some green, and now I'm going to come in with some orange to color the trees. So I want to do sort of the changing leaves on a tree. And you can see how wonderfully juicy all this stuff is. I'm going to take this stamp, and I'm just going to flip it over, and I'm going to stamp it right onto the cardstock that I had there. I love those drops. Man, those just keep calling to me, but I'm going to focus, finish with the stamp, then I can go play with the drops. And there is something about the Color Blooms so that it doesn't bead up on stamps, because if you use some other dye inks, they tend to bead up when using them on a stamp, and these don't. The color just mixes beautifully, and oh, I got to go deal with those dots. So I'm grabbing an index card right here. I am just going to absorb up that extra painty wet goodness that is there, and I love that. It shows another thing that I love about the Prima Blooms is I get more of a splattery look with those a lot of times. If I want to have a very even coverage like what you saw in my Wall of Words stenciling in the beginning, I can have that. But if I want to create a splattery look, I can also do that with the Color Blooms. Well, now I'm just going to cut that image out because I'm going to put it on top of the Wall of Words. And I will tell you that I had a plan for this that's going to go flying out the window once I start. So I want to try and figure out where I want to position this. There are all sorts of words on this stencil, and I'm trying to find the ones that fit how I'm feeling at the moment. And I think I'm going to go with "it might be a good thing." So I'm trying to get it positioned right where I want it. And I think I've got it where I want it. Oh, and that stamp, I just run it under the faucet, cleans it off, and it is good to go again. Just wipe it off, and it's very easy cleanup with that. Of course, am I going to clean that up right now? No. I'm going to keep playing here. Well, like I said, I thought I knew where I wanted it, but you know what? It's just not quite right to me. So I'm going to fiddle with it a little more. You may have noticed nothing here is exactly lined up or square or perfect. When I stenciled Wall of Words, yeah, that didn't line up perfectly on the paper. And this wonderful tree stamp, it's not perfectly cut at right angles. And I guess if I pulled out a ruler and I measured and did all that stuff, I could make everything perfectly line up. But instead, I'm going to take the shortcut and actually use the rows of words to be my ruler. So I know I want to use the "we are what we believe we are" as the words right above the trees. So I'm going to let that be the thing that helps me line up where I'm going to place my trees. So I'm going to kind of cut off part of the letters underneath it, That way, the top of it is going across relatively straight. Although I do know where I've cut on the trees, that's not perfectly straight, and I call that giving it character. Now, how do I line up the rest of the sides? Well, this is where I also cheat, because the words are going to help me, and I'm going to use a paper cutter to do it. So what I'm going to do is just find one portion of it to line up, and I'm not going to measure anything. What I'm doing is actually spacing it based on the edge of the cutting tool. So that little plastic part there. And because I didn't hold my hand down very well, it actually kind of slipped on me. But that's not a problem. That's just an oops. That means I just put it the other direction, and this time actually hold down really firmly as I'm cutting it so the thing doesn't slide on me. And maybe I'll do it twice because the first time didn't work either. Apparently I'm all fumbly fingers today. Well, now what I'm going to do, I've got one side done. Now what I'm going to do is find something else that I can use to line up with. And the text I know is perfectly straight. So I'm cheating and using that for what I'm going to line up against. So I'm just finding a spot, lining up the text to make sure it's straight, and then giving it a quick old cut. Now, when I started doing this, I was thinking about doing it as a card or that kind of thing, but the more I saw it on the larger size, I really like that, so I went bigger, and that's the nice part about not really measuring. When I'm actually looking at it, I can then decide how big I want it to be, and instead of worrying about lining things up, I'm just going to use those words as my cheat to keep things looking relatively straight. Although granted, it's probably not engineering straight. Well, remember how I said I thought I was going to do something smaller with this, and then I decided to go larger? Well, guess what? I changed my mind again. I think I'm going a little bit smaller, and I'm going to cut some more off the top. Again, don't have to measure. I'm just using those words as a way to line things up. And now I've got that we are what we believe we are, right at the top, standing out even more than it was before. And that's really what I wanted for these trees. Or I should say, that's what I think I really wanted for these trees. So why do I love these Prima blooms? Right now I love them because they stick to things like rubber stamps better than any of my other spray inks. They make great splatters and splitters of things, and they also stick very well to stencils. They are, for the most part, do not seem to react with water. So you can see on this part it was fairly dry. I'm smearing it around, so I'm getting a little bit of color. I'm just putting water on this, so if you flood it with enough water, you're going to see a little bit of color change. But it's not like it's running a whole lot. And that makes this one really nice for when you want to layer or build colors. Once it dries, it's not going to smear a whole lot. And I've pretty much made the point that this stuff doesn't run or smear too much, but I'm just having so much fun smearing water around, I apparently can't seem to stop. So I'm just going to keep doing that while I wrap up this video. Well, thanks for joining me for a play date here. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And of course, I'd love it if you'd stop over to the blog and join the conversation and share what you love about spray inks, either over on the blog or on the Google Plus community called A Colorful Playground. And yes, indeed, there's a giveaway. If you would like to win that stencil wall of words, head on over and leave a comment on the blog to be entered. Thanks for being a part of this colorful journey.